Alright, for this particular project, I took a piece of 2x4 and cut 4 square pieces out of it. I can't remember the length, probably about 9-10 inches long each. I glued them together with some Gorilla Glue, just regular super glue, and then taped the ends together with some blue painter's tape. I clamped them together just for a few minutes, just until the glue would set up, trying to get a stronger bond between them. Then using the seams between the pieces of wood, you can easily find the center to put on your spur center and live center. The goal of an inside-out turning is to turn the inside of the ornament first, and then later on we'll take the pieces apart and then turn the outside. So here I just want to hog out a half circle to form the inside of my ornament. I wasn't sure exactly how deep to go, so here I took it apart just to check, and I made sure I marked all the inside corners. You can kind of see, whenever I put them together, I had a hole going into the center that was maybe 1 millimeter wide. So I sanded off the dry CA glue. Put more glue on. Taped it back together. And then I clamped it up again just for a couple of minutes to get the glue to set. And then back to the lathe. I learned that you really need to go fairly deep. I think I hogged out probably a third, if not more, of the material. And here you can see the glue actually came apart, started to split, the tape wasn't sticking. So I just took it off. I didn't record, I just took the thing off, re-glued it. And instead of putting 1 or 2 wraps of tape on, I actually went with like 6 or 7 layers of the blue painter's tape. That way I got a really tight hold on it. There's a lot of force being applied with the turning wood and the chisel being pressed against it that the super glue really doesn't hold very well. But the tape, it did come through in the end. And again, I just kept stopping the lathe and checking to see where I was. Make sure it got nice and round on the inside. And here I split the wood up again. And you'll want to make sure when you split these apart and turn them around, I marked the inner corners on each piece, and you want to make sure those inner corners are now the outside 4 corners of the finished glued up product. I ended up gluing 2 pieces together at a time. You can, if you choose, glue up all 4 pieces all at once. I wasn't exactly sure how to go about doing that with the clamps I had, so I just went 2 at a time. Also, try to keep the glue away from the turned out part. If you get glue in there and you don't get it cleaned up immediately, it's really hard to get out once all 4 pieces are glued together. So once those dried, I glued them together and took them over to my miter saw and just flattened out the ends of the piece. And then I didn't do this before, but here I drilled out a little relief hole. That way the live center and spur center wouldn't be putting so much force to split the wood apart. I should have done that in the first place, and I probably wouldn't have had an issue. But I didn't. So I did. Now here I just put it back on the lathe, and I started to round over the entire thing, and then I figured I should probably do the ends first, and then I could figure out how to take care of the hollowed out section. I was really afraid of getting a catch and having this thing just explode in my face. So I took a very long time and took a lot of light cuts. And I just tried to follow the inside curve as much as possible as well. I believe this footage is sped up at 25 times speed. So So you can definitely tell I was going pretty slow, at least to start with. And again, I just kept taking very light cuts until I got the hollowed out section completely rounded. Once I was satisfied, I just gave the ends of the hollowed section a little bit of definition with the skew chisel. Then I went to my smallest spindle gouge and started shaping. So far, I've never followed a pattern to turn something on the lathe, so everything I turn is just by eye and spur of the moment. Just whatever happens to start forming, I just go with, and that's what ends up happening. So you can see here, I'm just taking down a lot of material. And then I realized that the bead and cove is a bit too big, so I start taking it down because I'm not going to have enough room to taper it down at the rate it was going. So I end up tapering it a lot more quickly. And I just keep moving back and forth and shaping the top, shaping the bottom, see what I like. Then once I'm satisfied with its overall shape, I take some 80 grit sandpaper to it. I actually, when I use the 80 grit sandpaper, I tend to do a little bit more shaping with it, at least for pine, which is all I've turned so far. I seem to get a lot of tear out. I don't know if my chisels just aren't sharp enough or I'm just not using them properly. Once I finish up with the 80, I move on to 120 and finish up with 220. I really didn't see the point in going further than that. And then here I just take some wax, rub it over the hollowed section, because otherwise the holes will just scrape all the wax off of my paper towel. I turn the lathe on and wipe some wax over the rest of it. And then here I take a super high-tech polishing cloth and I buff the entire thing. And no, that is not an old sock, I swear. And then I tried to push some wax on the inside just to smooth it out, but it didn't really work so much. Once I finished there, I went over to the bandsaw and I cut off the waste on the top and bottom. And there you go, my first ever inside-out Christmas ornament. It took me quite a while to turn, as it was my first turning, so I took a lot of light passes. I've made a couple more since, and they take very little time after you make your first one. Once you actually realize exactly how thick you need to leave everything and where you can go with it. But definitely do yourself a favor and make sure you sand that inside before you take the thing apart and re-glue it, because I could not get in there with sandpaper. I did manage to push some wax in, smooth it out a little bit, but not good enough. And then just make sure you sand the tops and bottoms and wax them as well, or whatever finish you happen to use. So yeah, if you like the video, please click the like button below. Make sure you subscribe if you'd like to view my other videos. And there's some really cool things you can do with these, and I'm definitely going to be doing more of them. So thank you for watching. Have a great Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas.